Okay, it's coming up to 11 o'clock, so let's start. And I'll just invite people in as they come in.
All right, let's start on it.
Yep,
Sure. I don't see anyone here in the participants, but there can be other people from the live stream, isn't it?
yes.
Right. Okay. All right. Good day, everyone. My name is Bhuvan J. Bandar. I'm an associate professor in the School of Business in the University of Wollongong. It's an Australian university, and I'm currently in the Dubai campus. So, first of all, I would like to thank GlobalNxt University, especially Mr. Martin, for inviting me today to share some research ideas with you, especially on AI-driven HRM. And my focus today would be on discussing some research areas, emerging research area that's worth studying. So this is the focus today. So I'm not going to focus so much on what is AI-driven HRM. I will give you the context, basic context for anybody who's not specifically in business or in the HR field. Uh, and then I will move on to identifying what are the most interesting, worthwhile areas that we can make some impact as researchers. So research directions, research focus areas going to be my uh, point of discussion today. Right, to start with, let me give a small introduction to the context where I'm coming from or where this research is actually coming from. As you can understand that the contemporary business world, uh, it goes through a lot of challenges. And the question that we ask as HR professionals, as HR researchers, as academics is that what can HR do? Can HR take an active role in shaping solutions? For example, as your business students, business researchers must know that we always, as businesses, operates in a VUCA environment. The volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity, complexity in the business environment is always, always increasing. And on top of that, we have the macro environmental factors that are in the uh, macro environment, which means outside the organizations, outside of your organization that you cannot control, such as technological changes, as the topic today is on AI. So the changes that AI is currently doing to workforce management, human resource management, are good examples. Apart from that, we see political conflicts, wars between countries, economic crisis, economic booms, fluctuations, volatility, right? All these things gives us challenges and opportunities. So in this rapidly changing agile environment, the question is, what can HR do, right? And how can we contribute to creating business value, business growth, and also helps in survival of businesses as well. So this is where we are coming from. And how exactly is HR then contributing? How and why and what new ways? So what we see drastically with the changes with technology is that the role of HR, especially which used to be very admin focused, back office function, now moving to more strategic, value creating function, right? And with this, especially with technological revolutions and digitalization, AI transformation, what we see is that HR now mostly moving away from that admin focus is focusing on proactive analysis, focusing hugely on measurement, metrics, robust people management strategies that can help to address these evolving business needs, right? So this is why AI now has been the game changer, among other technologies, of course, yes. And with AI, the impact that we can create, the business values that we create, especially with insights, more data-driven, more informed decision making, is becoming the core of HR. Like I said, moving from a very admin to a more value creating. business function in organization. So with that, now we talk more and more about algorithmic human resource management rather than traditional human resource management. What we see is we are moving towards algorithmic human resource management. So what is it? What is algorithmic human resource management? It is use of AI algorithms to improve HR related decision making, right? Either through augmentation or automation to make more effective decisions. So we see three key features. One is generation and use of digital data. That is the main area that we see a lot of companies are focusing on now. Unlike, let's say, 10 years ago, we have data points of employees that previously we did not have access to, right? We have so much of data. It can be coming from real-time data such as CCTV cameras, your webcams, your online usage, which are very real-time data. On top of that, we have sensors, we have so much of metrics and other things measuring you as an employee. So more and more companies are trying to understand your behavior, your perceptions, your thinking to understand and convert it into digital footprint to make decisions about you. And the second feature is that they use algorithms to analyze, process this data and make decisions. And most of these decisions are either to fully automate certain HR functions, such as CV screening, recruitment, deciding which training or development program you need to take. Very simply, from whom to hire, whom to fire, whom to develop, whom to promote, everything can be automated now. This is what we see in the industry. Or rather than completely automating, we can focus on augmentation, which is using these insights, decisions, data points, data-driven decisions to improve what we do as human beings, as HR at the moment. So this is algorithmic HR management, very simple definition or introduction. And the ultimate goal, like I said to you before, is creating value for organizations, creating the strategic impact. Right? Let me give just one example, because our focus is not introduction to AI HR, more about research and directions, isn't it? So IBM had an issue with attrition, people leaving workplace, like high turnover, especially business critical positions, business critical roles, right? So people who are in critical roles, leaving the company is a huge cost, not just in terms of day-to-day performance, but longer term impact, sustainability of the organization, because talent is human resource still is the most important resource we have. So what did they do? They develop a predictive model. They considered multiple variables, not just these six. Just these are just example, right? And they through this model, they were able to understand in the next 6 months who will leave the company, right? So they looked at different patterns, different insights, the model, and they came up with, let's say, that these kind of employees which are working for the same manager for the same manager in the last 10 years, traveling to work more than 10 kilometers from their home, uh, salary in this range, and has been with the company for last 15 years, right? Like they're just an example, are highly likely to leave the organization in the next 6 months. So through these insights they gathered, they were able to recognize those categories of employees and take proactive decisions before they leave, right? So the important thing is like it gives the retention risk signal. These are the potential people to leave. So take actions, take proactive action. So yeah, they did this. And over 4 years, they were able to save more than $300 million because uh, leaving one person leaving the company is such a huge cost, because it's you have to recruit people again, develop them again, right? And it's a cost. So they were able to save huge amount of money, as well as decrease attrition or turnover by 25% in 1.5 years, right? So this is what AI can do. AI can help us with value creation. Very important. Sounds very nice. Yeah, very nice. The financial returns are nice. Operational performance is good. Yeah, all good. But this comes with certain costs, especially ethical challenges, which I will focus on in future research directions. So a lot of research is actually uh, have focused previously on what are these kind of benefits, especially the efficiency gains, strategic gains. But we are here today to talk about what we can do in the future as researchers. So yeah, still worthwhile investigating the possible benefits of AI using HRM, but for example, for PhD researchers might not give a lot of advantage because it has been studied in the last 10 years comprehensive. So what we can do, this is the main topic that I'm going to talk, future research direction. So uh, my question is for you to think about how do you identify research areas in your field that are worth investigating as a researcher, as a PhD scholar, as a as an academic team, right? What sources or strategies do you rely on? Two questions that I usually always ask my PhD students. So one of the very effective ways is to look at recent call for papers by the top journals in our field. So today my focus is on HR, so Human Resource Management, which is the UK one, Human Resource Management Journal, which is the US one, Personal Review, International Journal of Human Resource Management. So they once in a while call for these papers. They give a topic, they give certain thematic areas of questions, and they say these are the things that we look for, right? Special issues that they are going to publish. So I'm going to just talk about, not introduce, talk about three special issues that is going on right at the moment, just to show you what the field is interested about. So human resource management currently have a call for papers on from human resource management to artificial intelligence management, algorithms and changing governance of people at work. So this is the topic, right? So the topic itself is very interesting. So what we are trying to do as human resource professionals now is to actually manage artificial intelligence. Because if AI is now recruiting, deciding whom to develop, whom to promote, whom to hire and fire, right? Now HR, they have a new role, which is not just managing just people, but how do you manage AI in the HR function, which was not the focus before. So this is very important. And they have identified three focus areas. And I've given the link here if anybody is interested to go and read. They have certain research questions themselves, so you can go and read. But what are the common themes? That's my interest. So algorithmic control and coordination. This is one particular area, especially with algorithmic management. That's what happens. AI takes control, it coordinates, right? For example, workplace staff scheduling, right? Very good example of coordination. Control, the speed that which you need to achieve targets, right? Whether you're, for example, Amazon looked at their injuries at their warehouses. And through real-time data and analysis, they can warn their employees who are in the warehouses if they are, uh, let's say, working too slow, or if their physical movement, especially working in the warehouses, is there any potential to create injuries, right? So they will warn them. So real-time control, which is a very important topic to be examined. So with this, what's the impact on many other areas such as employees' well-being, their happiness at work, or their anxiety at work when algorithmic control is too high, right? Second thematic area that the special issue is looking at is job quality, fairness, and employees. So very interesting area again, especially with control and AI taking over. What's the job quality compared to traditional methods that you were used to? These are very important two topics, fairness and employee voice, which I will talk about as well, part of my research. Fairness. Are these algorithm decisions, are they fair? Do you have any voice over these decisions? Can you contest? If it is a human manager, you can contest, you can argue, you can reason, but can you reason with AI when the decision is made and it says you're not eligible for a promotion, but these individuals are eligible? Can you contest? So do you have a voice, right? And the third theme they're looking at is HR roles, new HR roles. Like I said, now HR has a governance, AI governance role, which were not previously focus area. New capabilities that they need to develop and governance itself, right? So very interesting three areas of research that this paper is talking about. Let me move to the next one, which is human resource management, the US one, and they have a special issue of all for papers on tech and talent, the evolving role of technology in talent management. So they basically focus on five areas. First one, technology-driven redefinition of talent, exceptional performance and high potential. So AI will redefine what talent is, what talent means, who is a high performer, who is a high potential in the workplace, which used to be done by line managers, HR together. Right now, AI will define it. Very interesting. So with this, what are the new talent, new skills that we require, right? It's somewhere here as well, yes. So next one is balancing AI and human judgment in talent-related decision making. So what's the criteria? What's the balance? Is it as an organization, what is the most effective in terms of talent management, not just cost efficiency, right? Is it pure AI automation or is it augmentation with human in the loop? Right? What is it? What are the different combinations of AI and human interaction that we can have for talent management? Technology-enabled transformation of skills, careers, and internal talent mobility. This is becoming very important. What are the areas for reskilling, upskilling? What are the new careers that are emerging? How is it affecting internal talent mobility? Some interesting questions that we need to address to. And fourth, digital transformation in hybrid, remote, and platform-based work arrangements, which is very important, especially after COVID. We have all these models from traditional to remote and hybrid, and platform-based work have been there even before that, right? So how is it transforming these different types of work designs and what are consequences for organizations? And also this call for papers also focus on effective, fair, and trustworthy technology. So once again, the ethical aspect, which is very crucial in managing AI in the workplace, because we are talking about you and me, human beings. When AI takes decisions about our career, about our profession, about our work, which has a lot of meaning to us, it's very important that we have those ethical elements, trust, fairness, inclusion, integrity, protecting dignity. That's what the last theme is about. And finally, there's a call for papers by Personnel Review, which is also a popular and a good journal in the field, toward a human-centered workplace, empowering diversity and inclusion in the age of artificial intelligence. This one, I'm very interested about this one because it is specifically focused on what I mentioned to you before, the ethical aspect, especially the diversity and inclusion aspect, right? So they are talking about mechanisms for equitable AI-based hiring and selection outcomes. So what are the measures? What are the different mechanisms? Nowadays, Gen AI is increasingly being used for many aspects of recruitment and selection. So does that guarantee diversity and inclusion? Or are there discrimination or biases inherent in those systems? AI-enabled accessibility, workplace participation, employment opportunities for marginalized people. So, before AI came, a lot of organizations have been working on diversity and inclusion significantly, right? Because it became a very important aspect of work recently. But with AI, what happens to those marginalized people, marginalized groups, people with issues having accessibility issues or any other special need? What happens to them? Are they being discriminated? some things that we have to look into. Then human oversight, minority employee input, and inclusive designing equitable AI systems. So another very important area, human oversight, right? So for inclusion and diversity, we had the notion, or some people still have the notion that AI is very objective, it's data driven, but it's not true 100%. So there should be some more human oversight, which is very important. And especially what is the impact or input really of employees and the key stakeholders involved. This is very critical. AI-enabled learning and development for inclusive reskilling. So again, learning and development now are being decided, created, designed, developed by AI, right? So uh, the impacts of such measures, such initiatives in the workplaces is another area that the journal is looking into. And finally, legal, ethical, and governance issues, like I mentioned to you before. What are the new governance frameworks? Sorry, ethical frameworks, and what is the impact of increasing legal, regulatory compliance and regulatory or rather regulations that is coming up in different parts of the world, what's their impact on human resource management in the workplace. So very interesting three call for papers in top tier journals that I've shared with you. So this is just as a brain as a thinking or rather a discussion point I actually had. Uh, Moving on, having this in the background, what are the research focus areas that I am interested right now? So this is something that I can talk about through my personal research, which I will share you, some examples and where this emerged. So if you looked at those special issues and what I'm doing right now, what I'm researching right now, and some potentially three valuable research areas for you as PhD students and researchers is you could have seen that these three themes emerged in those three special issues, which is going right now, right? It's going on right now. Um, so first one is fairness, bias, and discrimination, the impact of AI, or rather AI biases, impact of AI on fairness and discrimination, impact of AI on anxiety, what we call AI anxiety, employee voice and employee well-being impacted by AI, and what happens to diversity and inclusion. So my next few slides will focus on these three areas. And what I'm going to do is put forward specific research questions that you can think of in your research as future research directions. So it'll give you some insights because these are through literature review, through my own research. I know these questions have not been addressed comprehensively, which means there's a gap in the field that still these things are required. So let's move on to the first theme, which is on fairness, bias, and discrimination. So something that I'm very interested about, and I will share one research we did very recently last year, actually, which was published in Human Resource Management Journal. I've given the link here as well. You can read it if you're interested. So if you remember, one of the special issues asked for new capabilities of HR, new roles, new capabilities that HR needs to develop. So we came up with this new capability, which is HR algorithmic bias management capability, which is the ability of firms to manage biases in AI when it is applied in human resource management. Right? This was the first kind of study to introduce or develop such capabilities, and we looked at three dimensions: bias management at the data level, right? We use numerous data because when the data is biased, because we use historical data, it naturally bias the outcomes, right? Doesn't matter if we use algorithms, AI models, because the data is biased, the outcome's going to be biased as well. So how do you manage that? Then the model design and develop, AI model development is itself, right? Are there biases inherent on that? And finally, the third one, deployment bias. When you design develop, and actually then you have to develop or deploy it in the real world. You have to apply. When you apply, are there factors that can impact, right? Do you have ethical frameworks? Are you bound by the regulatory frameworks? When you deploy, how do you manage bias? So three elements impacting bias management capability, and we looked at how it's impacting high performance HR practices such as talent attraction, retention, and so on, performance management. And by that, the influence overall on the effectiveness of HRM function overall in the organization. Because why? Because now AI is increasingly determining what we do in HR. So strategically, what is the overall functions effectiveness compared to our traditional methods or models of working, right? So you can read about this paper through this link. So just an example how we looked into these new challenges that we have and come up with new opportunities for research, right? So what are some other areas? So for each theme, I'm going to introduce you three research questions. There can be multiple themes and questions, but because of time limitation and the focus that I have today, I will introduce three focus questions that you can look into. The first question I have under first theme, fairness, bias, and discrimination is how do organizational AI bias management capabilities contribute to sustained HR performance, particularly through their effects on employee retention, relationship quality, and long-term trust in AI-enabled HR systems? So knowing that AI is going to be there in the long run, that's the reality, right? It's not going to decline, it's going to be used more and more. So how are these bias management capabilities? This is just one capability as an example from my research. How does such bias management capability, because fairness and discrimination are key ethical issues that we are facing in these systems. So how such capabilities impact employee retention, relationship quality in the workplace? Because if you see that AI is creating or making biased decisions, discriminating you, it's going to negatively affect employee relationships in the workplace, your relationship with the company, your relationship with your line manager, with HR, and so on, right? So that is something you can do as a longitudinal study. You can look at sustainable human resource management performance, which means in the long run, how is these effects of algorithm bias and bias management capabilities going to impact these critical areas? Second one, human AI decision configurations. This is very important because all the companies are not completely automated. No, they are completely going for the same system, same tool. So there are different configurations that we can have, right? So how do different human AI decision configurations shape fairness and discrimination? For example, a company or function in the same company which has full automation versus AI recommendations with human approval. So final approval is from human beings or humans, HR personnel. Human in the loop systems versus shared human AI decision authority, right? So there can be multiple configurations of how AI is adopted, and we can look into such configurations and how the differentiation of such configurations on different outcomes in the workplace, especially regarding fairness, bias, and discrimination, right? For example, compare to full automation, automated recruitment versus human in the loop recruitment, right? Which one is creating more biases? Because don't think because there's a human, there's going to be non-biased. No, there's subjective bias coming from humans. That's why people moving to AI or data-driven decisions because it is objective, right? But like I mentioned to you before, it is not purely or 100% objective. So what is the best configuration that you can propose as a researcher through your research? Finally, explainability and contestability. So this is very important. This is becoming very important, especially when increasingly AI is making decisions regarding all parts of our work life. Um, how is explainability? Because AI models, AI decisions are usually considered as black boxes, Nobody really knows. Line managers don't know how AI makes such decisions or why they take such decisions, which variables they consider. So, the, what if the models being used can be explained to a normal person like you and me, right? This is how you're being promoted. This is why you are being given this training and development, not the other one, right? So this is important. What are the impact of appealing channels? Grievance systems, especially where you're not given a promotion, not being considered for a special project, international assignment. Grievance systems, do you have one? What is the impact? Does it work like traditional methods? Auditing tools, right? These are some examples. So you can consider how these tools, measures, and mechanisms impact explainability and contestability in AI-driven decision making. And let's move on to the second thing, which is on AI anxiety, voice and employee well-being. So this is a current research that we are doing. It's under review. And what we looked at here is one important element in detail, that is algorithmic justice and that's their impact on workplace well-being, right? So fairness is very important because if I do the same job, I have the same qualifications and my performance have been up to a good standard level, similar to my colleague, and distributive justice is about the outcome service. If the algorithm has decided a better pay or a better bonus for your friend or your colleague compared to you, you feel injustice. You feel you're unfairly treated by the algorithm, right? So we looked at four areas: outcome-based, distributive fairness, procedural fairness. Do they follow the same procedures for everybody when making decisions? Interpersonal justice, how that affects relationships, right? Informational justice, do we have the information? This is again about transparency, explainability. Do we have the information regarding how this decision is made? Because when we are in the blind, we usually feel we are mistreated or unfairly treated because we don't know how the decision was made. So we looked at very important two outcomes. One is well-being, right? Because fairness has been proven in the last 40, 50 years in traditional research, traditional work context. Fairness critically impact employees' well-being, their satisfaction at work, and thereby whether people will retain in the company or leave the company. Additionally, we looked at a very interesting phenomenon which is called AI anxiety. Anxiety is not a new phenomenon, but AI anxiety is, because this is anxiety that is being created by the significant or predominant use of AI in workplaces, right? So we looked at this, and this is quite fascinating, this research actually, because all the things that we looked at before, such as workplace well-being, we had good models explaining what impacts well-being. But now with AI, things have been transformed completely. So we have to relook what are those AI elements, such as AI HR justice, to understand these new phenomena. So what else can we study? So again, I will introduce you three questions that's worth studying. That's not been researched much. First one is algorithmic monitoring, especially how does algorithmic monitoring affect employee well-being through autonomy, stress, digital fatigue, and perceived control. So how does monitoring impact these elements? Stress, digital fatigue, perceived control you have of decisions, your work, and thereby impacts well-being, your overall well-being, or individual or employee well-being. Second question is um, about voice, which is very important because in traditional work context, we studied so many areas such as formal voice, informal voice, the things you share with your line manager formally, things that you share formally with HR, for example, right? When you have a problem, when you have a question. But what does AI really do to employee voice? That's something that we need to look into. Especially, we might think with AI chatbots, other AI tools and systems, employees can share more. But is it really improving voice, or is it really silencing them? Because now you're sharing something with AI algorithms. Does it really help you as a human too, right? So what happens to, for example, collective voice? As you know, we have employee representative groups. In some countries, we have trade unions. These are all collective voice. So what happens to collective voice when AI is in the play, right? It completely changes the game. How it might, for example, how can AI, for example, intervene with enterprise agreement making or enterprise bargaining, which is very common in countries where you have trade unions, right? So some questions that we need to address because these things have been not been considered before, but increasingly when everything is being AI driven, things that we need to consider what happens to our voice, our concerns. Are we being silenced rather than being, improved or enhanced in terms of what we can share, the problems we can share? And finally, this humane aspect. There's a saying, don't forget the H in HR, which means the human part. We are talking about not buildings, infrastructure, so on. We are talking about people. So, how do you still, while having this AI-enabled control, monitoring, decision making, bring that human interaction? Where does it interact? Where does it involve? Where does managerial support come into play? What's the importance of that? Participatory design of AI systems and tools, right? Um, because employees can be involved in AI decision making, AI governance, um, and appeal channels. These are some areas that we can consider because that human aspect is very critical for human resource management. We are not talking about finance operations. We are talking about HR. So that H important letter H is very critical in my opinion, the human aspect of HRM, something that we still need to, uh, in a new way, right? Not the same traditional methods, but in a new way, how can humans involve or intervene in AI-enabled decision making? And finally, I'm going to talk on diversity and inclusion. Like I mentioned to you at the very beginning, we have been working on diversity and inclusion, especially in the last 10 years, significantly. All countries from West to Asia, we have been looking at inclusive workplaces, overcome discrimination, right? But with AI, this has changed. This is changing significantly. So what are some interesting areas that we can look into? First question, how do responsible AI practices in HRM shape workplace diversity and inclusion? By ensuring fair representation, inclusive participation, and equitable access to development and career opportunities over time. So this is very important. Responsible AI practices. In organizations that are increasingly using AI, what are the responsible AI practices that they're using? What about privacy? What about data security? What about transparency? And how those practices influence diversity and inclusion. So this is something that is really important to be examined because uh, not only AI decision making, but the governance principles, the responsible AI practices, these things are very critical to ensure inclusion and diversity in the workplace, DEI in the work. So this is something that we need to look into in detail. And very interestingly, how do AI-based career recommendations and talent management systems shape unequal access to career capital, right? So are there again unfair access to unequal access to career capital, internal mobility, international assignments, global roles, and high potential status? So which means, for example, when we decide global roles in a multinational corporation, international assignments, right? When AI career-based recommendations are considered now, which is happening significantly, right? Are there any groups? Are there any, let's say, gender groups, age groups, ethnic groups, or certain skill groups that have been discriminated by AI, right? Because it affects overall your career progression, not just career capital, career progression, career satisfaction, and so on. So this is something that increasingly researchers might have to look into. And also very interesting research for an international HRM student or a researcher is this comparison, or rather, considerations of cultural and institutional context, which can influence what is fair, what is inclusive in terms of AI. Because most of the models, most of the designs, most of the what do you call AI systems, tools, for example, recruitment tools such as Hireable, they are developed in developed countries, right? Their interpretation of what is inclusive, what is diverse, what is fair, does it same apply same for a developing country or another country, or even for your company as a practitioner? So this is very important. So research comparing global north and global south countries. What is AI fairness? What is AI driven diversity? AI driven inclusion, right? Comparison between multinational firms and small and medium enterprises. Different regulatory environments. For example, Europe is fantastic in terms of AI regulation compared to a lot of Asian countries. So comparison between such Asian countries and European countries to see how either diversity and inclusion is promoted and protected by regulatory mechanisms. All right, so these research areas are still laggy. They're still emerging, and we need a lot more research to get insights as to uh, how, for example, uh, cultural aspects in one country, right, is can influence how AI-driven decision making should be fair or inclusive. How do you integrate that, right? Because something that is being considered fair can be considered not so fair in another country. So these are some of the areas in terms of AI impact on diversity and inclusion that you can consider, which is worthwhile and interesting because there's not much studies. So these are the three main areas that I want to highlight today in terms of what you can consider as future research directions. So key takeaways from my presentation is that first one is uh, AI is transforming HR and HR functions with that workplaces workforce management significantly. And this presents several important and underexplored research opportunities. So this is one broad area. AI-driven HR is one broad area still research and researchers can focus on because it has given us so many opportunities because of the new opportunities, challenges, unexplored areas that we have. Because we don't know, we are in the blind, we don't know, for example, agentic AI, when AI completely starts thinking for us, making decisions for us, right? What will happen in the future regarding my workplace relationship with this agentic AI manager? So non-human manager, what would that relationship would be like? It's going to be very interesting, right? So a lot of opportunities, unexplored areas for research. And the second key takeaway is that uh, with significant AI use, increasing AI use, the focus on ethics, especially relevant to bias, diversity, inclusion, transparency, fairness, for sustainability, is going to be a key focus. This is something that's not going to go away because the ethical and legal challenges AI systems are creating. This is going to be an area there's going to be a lot of focus on. So this is why my three areas which I am focusing, which I shared with you, are basically all aligned with, responsible layer or ethics driven AI. So something that you can think of because efficiency gains, like I said, the productivity efficiency gains, the performance gains, these have been studied a lot. We know we apply AI because of these benefits, but with it comes these challenges and something that you can consider in research. And finally, this is very important as researchers. We need to take an interdisciplinary approach to address this research. HR, as you can see, is now just not HR. right? It is now with AI because it's a socio-technical challenge. It is not just a technological or HR thing anymore. Because of this, you can consider theories or theoretical frameworks from HR, sociology, psychology, information systems, AI, and you need to take a much more broader approach, interdisciplinary approach in looking into these uh, research areas because these are neither HR issues nor technological issues. So we need to come up with that interdisciplinary, multiple perspective approach to address these research areas which I shared with you. All right, so these are the three key takeaways, and this is basically the conclusion of my presentation. I actually have Q&A session, but I don't think there's anybody live here in the chat that's able to ask questions or anything. Martin, so this is it from me. Thank you for the opportunity. I had planned, 10-15 minutes actually for a discussion with the audience. So uh, with this, I will finish then. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I think some people joined us on the streaming side of things, but obviously we didn't get anybody coming in through here. I suspect it might have been because of the 10:30, 11 o'clock thing. But this has been
Yes,
streamed, and it also we've recorded it, so we'll put it up on the site as well. So
sure.
thank you very much for your
And
time.
no problem. And anybody who wants to contact me, here's my email address, and I will share you the PPT slides as well. So you can, if you want to upload it, you can do so. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, Marty, and GlobalNxt. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
See you then. Bye.